Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. I'm Madison Deal.
And I'm Jonah Summers. Tonight we'll have all the need-to-know information on growing global warming concerns.
Plus, our reporters take it out onto the field to get the inside scoop on recent actions taking place on Point Park's campus.
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
A museum in the Netherlands recently unveiled a new exhibit featuring some unusual undersea treasures. Divers discovered a sunken ship from the 17th century off the coast of Texel, the largest island in the North Sea. Inside the ships were chests full of artifacts from the time unknown to researchers. Clothing, silverware, and textiles were just some of the artifacts found in the sunken chests. Two dresses that were almost completely intact quickly became the crown jewels of this investigation. It is very uncommon for artifacts from sunken ships, especially clothing, to be preserved as well as these two dresses. Emmy de Groot, one of the researchers at the museum, said, quote, "When I saw the clothing for the first time, I must say that I actually found it quite emotional. Clothing is so personal, and you're holding something in your hands that has been worn on someone's body. How close can you come to someone from the 17th century?" End quote. Both dresses are made from fine silk, with one being a more casual dress, while the other is clearly from a wedding. The first dress features a bodice, ruffled sleeves, and a full pleated skirt with a floral pattern. The fashion of the piece is from the styles of Western Europe from roughly 1620 to 1630. The pattern features red, brown, and cream colors, but is originally believed to be the same color, with the difference being due to staining from other garments in the chest. The wedding dress was found in a special case in different pieces, with silver thread in the shape of hearts and silver discs sewn on the originally cream or ivory dress. These pieces and more can be found in the Palmwood Wreck exhibit at the Museum Capskill in the Netherlands.
On February 12th, tragedy struck New Zealand. Cyclone Gabrielle hit the northmost region of the island, causing 2,800 homes to go without power, fields of crops to be completely destroyed, and more than 3,000 people missing. The death toll this past week rose to 11, which is the highest that it has been since the disaster struck. Critical supplies have been dropped via helicopter to people stranded since the cyclone. So 2 days ago, the New Zealand Prime Minister extended the state of emergency. The government there has also released a relief package worth more than $186 million. New Zealand Prime Minister Chris Hipkins also said that the disaster was, quote, "on a scale not seen in New Zealand for at least a generation," end quote. All 11 of the deaths have been confirmed and have been from Hawke's Bay, which is on the North Island, which is also where the cyclone struck. Prime Minister Hipkins also mentioned that the number of deaths would likely rise, adding to the destruction that it is hindering efforts to make contact with the people affected due to destroyed communications. So, as a result, New Zealand has launched 60 Starlink satellites developed by Elon Musk's SpaceX, with another 30 on the way to fill gaps in the telecommunications network as approximately 15,000 residents in the North Island remain without power.
A record-breaking dinosaur footprint dated back to the Jurassic period was found along the United Kingdom's dinosaur coast. This print is one of many to be found in Yorkshire, but this predator's print measured nearly a meter or 3.3 feet long. The discovery of this three-toed footprint happened in April of 2021. It is one of 6 to be found in the area, the last having been found in 1934. Local geologists claim that the footprint could have belonged to a Megalosaurus-like dinosaur. Marie Woods, a local geologist in Yorkshire, was the one to discover the dino's dent in the earth. When speaking about this discovery, Woods said, quote, "I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I had to do a double take. I have seen a few smaller prints when out with friends, but nothing like this. I can no longer say that archaeologists don't do dinosaurs," end quote. Global temperatures are not the only thing rising as concerns for Antarctica's glacier grows. Reporter Juliana Brock has the story.
Antarctica's Doomsday Glacier is rapidly melting in unexpected ways. It is nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier because if it collapses, it could cause a detrimental rise in sea levels. The actual name of the glacier is the Thwaites Glacier and is approximately the size of Florida, according to WTAE. Thwaites is located in West Antarctica and is being held in place by an ice shelf. However, since our oceans are warming up, that puts the ice shelf in a vulnerable position. A complete collapse of Thwaites could raise sea levels more than 2 feet, but the glacier is also acting as a, quote, natural dam to the surrounding ice in West Antarctica. And with the loss of that, sea levels could rise around 10 feet. Peter Davis, an oceanographer at the British Antarctic Survey, told CNN that there are small amounts of melting, but a rapid glacier retreat, meaning it would not take a lot to push the glacier out of balance. Although people are familiar with global warming and the idea that glaciers are melting, scientists are hoping that this is one that will spark people's attention and get them to change their ways. Davis said, quote, "Despite it being so remote, the consequences of what happens on Thwaites will impact everybody," end quote.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said he is suspending his country's participation in the New START nuclear arms reduction treaty with the United States, according to CNN. This statement imperils the last remaining pact that regulates the two world's largest nuclear arsenals. Putin made this announcement in his annual State of the Nation address on Tuesday. Now, this treaty limits the number of deployed intercontinental range nuclear weapons that both the U.S. and Russia can have. It was last extended in early 2021 for 5 years, meaning the sides would have to start negotiating for another control arms agreement. While Russia is not withdrawing from the pact completely, it appears to be formalizing its current position. This does not come as a surprise, as U.S. officials have been frustrated over Russia's lack of cooperation. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken told CNN President Biden's administration remains ready to talk about the nuclear arms treaty, saying, quote, "at any time with Russia, irrespective of anything else going on in the world," end quote. With Putin's latest announcement, there is now the question of whether Russia will now stop exchanging data with U.S. counterparts. Putin's nuclear saber rattling during the war has alarmed the U.S. and its allies, yet officials have repeatedly dismissed the moves as empty threats. Though a U.S. intelligence assessment in November suggested that the Russian military officials discussed under what circumstances Russia would use a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine, the U.S. has not seen any evidence that Putin has decided to take the drastic step of using one, officials told CNN.
Last Thursday, Spain's parliament approved legislation to allow individuals over the age of 16 to change their gender legally. Before this passed, the parliament, transgender individuals needed several doctors to diagnose them with gender dysphoria, as well as prove that they had had 2 years of hormone treatment before they could legally change their gender. Along with allowing transgender people to change their gender legally, this legislation eased abortion limits for 16 to 17-year-olds, putting in place bans on conversion therapy, as well as making Spain the first country in Europe to have paid menstrual leave. When speaking to Congress about the legislation, Spain's equality minister said, quote, "This is a law that recognizes trans people's rights to freely decide their gender identity. It stops trans realities from being treated as abnormalities. Trans people aren't sick people, they're people. From today, the state recognizes that," end quote. When we get back from this break, we will have an update on the growing concerns amid the Ohio train derailment and the resulting lawsuits filed. Also, hear about what famous celebrity lookalike is starting an online petition. Stay tuned.
Regular physical activity is one of the most important things you can do for your health. The benefits of physical activity include brain health, weight management, reducing disease, strengthening your bones and muscles, and improving your ability to do everyday activities. So, it's time to get up and be active.
Talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
A Los Angeles man is being charged with 2 hate crimes after allegedly shooting 2 different Jewish men this past week. The man, 28, was found in Riverside County, an hour away from the scene of the crime. Police found several pieces of evidence against the man in his car, including a handgun and a rifle. While the 2 identities of the victims have not yet been released, a police spokesperson told CNN that the first man was walking to his vehicle around 10 a.m. The suspect drove by and shot the victim twice before driving away. The following day, almost the same thing. The second victim was walking home when the suspect again drove by and shot him. Both victims were taken to the local hospital for these injuries and are both in stable condition. This shooting comes in the midst of an apparent uptick in anti-Semitic attacks. Anti-Semitic attacks reached an all-time high in 2021, according to the Anti-Defamation League. Both victims were on their way home from their respective places of worship, an indication to the police of anti-Semitism. One of the victims belonged to Beit Al Synagogue, which is working closely with police to provide new security for the worshipers. A spokesperson for Beit Al said, quote, "Our community is shaken to its core after these 2 shootings, but we are strong and united," end quote. Domestic terrorism and hate crime-focused federal agents are investigating the suspect's past to find proof of a hate crime, which will be revealed in the upcoming trial.
Following the derailment of a Norfolk Southern train in East Palestine, Ohio, residents of the area have since returned to work. That is until they started experiencing lingering coughs and chest pain. Now, since the attack, 8 class action lawsuits have been filed against Norfolk Southern. Residents have been claiming that they have been exposed to cancer-causing chemicals, and they no longer feel safe in their homes. Several other claims have been experiences of financial struggles and residents being away from their homes. So, what caused these lawsuits was that the derailment itself has been claimed wholly preventable, according to one of the numerous suits engaged by East Palestine residents that was. So, out of all 8 of these lawsuits, residents are seeking about $5 million in property damages, economic loss, and exposure to toxic chemicals. Attorneys of the class action suit said, quote, "While the lives impacted by this wholly preventable catastrophe may never be the same, we are committed to holding Norfolk Southern accountable for its actions and inactions in serving justice to those whose lives have been disrupted and remain in danger," end quote. Looking forward, Norfolk Southern stays concerned about the growing physical threat of their employees, stemming from the likelihood of participation of outside parties. So such outside parties are yet to be named, and East Palestine has not reported any threats against Norfolk Southern employees. Concerns rise over the United States' record-breaking credit card debt and its influence on increasing interest rates. Reporter Brennan McNamara is here with the update.
Thanks, Jonah. With high inflation still raging, consumer credit card debt has ballooned, coinciding with higher interest rates on that debt. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, credit card balances have increased by more than $60 billion over the 3-month period ending in December. That brings the total amount of U.S. credit card debt to $986 billion. The average interest rate offered in the U.S. over the last 3 months of 2022 was 21.6%, while a year prior it was 18%. The Federal Reserve has instituted a series of interest rate hikes over the last year, hoping to contain inflation. However, these rate hikes have had little effect on inflation so far, with prices still 6.4% above where they were last year, according to ABC News. These rate hikes have also caused higher interest on credit card payments, which when combined with high inflation have eaten away at savings and crushed household budgets. Ted Rossman, a senior analyst at Bankrate.com, said, quote, "A lot of people may not have enough income coming in to support day-to-day expenses, and so it lands on the credit card," end quote. This record credit card debt is sounding off alarms over the state of the U.S. economy, despite record low unemployment. Some signs have pointed to a slowing of consumer retail activity. However, according to Bloomberg, U.S. retail sales increased by 3% in January compared to the month prior.
Now, a first-generation iPhone still in its factory-sealed box sold for more than $63,000 over this past weekend. According to the New York Post, the 8-gigabyte phone was estimated to go for at least $50,000. The Apple Relic ended up selling for more than 7 times its original price of $559 in 2007. Bidding started at $2,500 on February 2nd via LCG auctions. The seller of the iPhone, Karen Green, said she received the phone as a gift from her friends when starting a new job in 2007. However, she already had a new phone and didn't want to switch to wireless carriers in order to activate such phone. The phone sat unopened for 12 years until she had it appraised on the daytime TV show The Doctor and the Diva in 2019. The show's resident appraiser valued it at $5,000. Now, in October, Green saw that an unopened first-release iPhone sold for more than $40,000. Green told Insider that after saving the phone for all those years, she decided it was time to sell it in order to support her new business endeavor, which was a cosmetic tattoo shop in New Jersey. The phone was purchased by a private buyer whose name has not been disclosed. A hospice patient daringly completes her bucket list. Her final activity, ziplining. Juliana Brock has the details.
82-year-old Barbara Kling crossed the final activity off her bucket list last Wednesday. Kling is a hospice patient in Phoenix, Arizona, and suffers from a lung condition. According to WTAE, the Stonebridge Hospice Care Team blindfolded her and surprised her with the opportunity to do something she has always dreamed about, that being ziplining. They took her to a zip line in Apache Junction, Arizona, which is 150 feet tall with a maximum speed of 30 miles per hour. It is the world's safest zip line. After signing a waiver, Kling, alongside with one of her nurses, got to experience the thrill of her life. She did not just do it once, but she got to do it a second time as well. Kling told KDKA, quote, "Tell me not to give up and I won't. I'm not a quitter, I'm a fighter, and I'm going to fight it until my last breath," end quote.
A video circulates of Councilman Chris Hines of Denver, Colorado, climbing onto a debate stage from his wheelchair. On February 13th, Denver had a political debate at Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Theater for an upcoming municipal election. The debate included Councilman Hines, who is paralyzed from the chest down. After an attempt to lift him in his 400-pound wheelchair, they told him to manually lift himself up onto the stage, which ensued a 5-minute struggle of Hines uncomfortably lifting himself off his wheelchair and onto the stage by himself in front of a waiting audience. After the fiasco, Hines explains that, quote, "I felt like a circus monkey. My thought was either I do what they want me to do or I forfeit my campaign's visibility," end quote. Now, politicians and disability advocates criticize the lack of accessibility in not only city-organized debates, but the lack of accessibility in areas that makes Hines' situation a common occurrence for wheelchair users. Hines hopes that, quote, "This should be a teachable moment. We shouldn't be asking for accommodations for things that should have already been the law," end quote. The stratospheric warming is expected to cause catastrophic changes to the March forecast. Reporter Brendan McNamara has all you need to know about the dramatic shift in the polar vortex.
Thanks, Addie. Temperatures high above the Arctic are warming, hitting up to 50 degrees in under a week. This so-called stratospheric warming event is disrupting the polar vortex, which could impact weather patterns for the month of March. 2 weeks ago, meteorologists predicted this to occur. However, it is too early to know exactly how the weather will be affected. While these events happen on average every 2 to 3 winters, they do not play out in a uniform fashion. There is speculation that this current event could completely reshuffle winter weather patterns, with much of the United States experiencing warmer than average temperatures for much of January and February. A previous polar vortex disruption took place in January 2021, and just over a month later, the worst cold snap since 1989 plunged most of the country into a deep freeze, which led to the collapse of the Texas power grid and the deaths of over 330 people. Multiple experts have said that it is too early to tell whether the current polar vortex disruption will lead to extreme weather or keep the current mild weather patterns in place.
Earlier this month, Ashley Leachin posted a Change.org petition on her TikTok account to help stop cyberbullying, harassment, and false defamation towards herself, according to the Rolling Stone, that was. But who is Ashley Leachin? Leachin is a registered nurse, mom of 2 kids, and a TikTok creator with 1.1 million followers for her uncanny resemblance to Taylor Swift. In her petition, Leachin addressed a laundry list of allegations against her. Some allegations include saying Leachin voted for Trump, though she is a Democrat, that she got plastic surgery to look more like Taylor Swift. The long petition also denied claims that stated she stole Taylor's favorite number 13, that she adopted cats to look similar to Taylor's cats, and that she holds her pen the same way Taylor does. Now, Leachin intended the position to shut down her haters. Instead, it had the opposite effect and has created more heat. Her appearance especially, as she denies the similarities, has enraged Swifties. Just recently, Leachin announced that she had partnered with the Grammys to attend the award ceremony, only to later post that the invitation had been revoked. She then posted multiple videos corroborating her story about her revoked invite. Many Swifties refuse to believe her. Regardless of all the hate she receives, Leachin says she does not intend to stop making TikToks. She says she is increasingly realizing that due to her large following, she can monetize her own social media presence, being just Ashley, more than she can monetize being a Taylor Swift lookalike.
6 people were killed in a mass shooting last Friday in Arkbutla, Mississippi. The shooting occurred in multiple locations by 52-year-old Richard Crum. The spree started at 11 a.m. when police were notified of a shooting in a nearby parking lot, where Crum had fatally shot a driver, Chris Boyce, in a parked car. He then drove to his ex-wife's house, shooting her and injuring her fiancé. Police then followed and confronted Crum outside his residence, where they found 2 more victims on a road behind the house, identified as nearby construction workers, as well as 2 other victims in a neighboring house, those victims being Crum's stepfather and stepfather's sister. The shooting, according to the Gun Violence Archive, was the U.S.'s 73rd mass shooting of this year. As of now, Crum is jailed without bond and charged with the capital murder of Chris Boyce, with more charges underway. Coming up after the break, we will have all of your local Pittsburgh news. Find out more about a newly developed curfew taking effect in a popular shopping plaza. Also, stay tuned to hear about which beloved downtown restaurant is closing its doors for the final time. We'll be right back.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back.
Welcome back
to Daybreak. Chicken Guy opened in PPG Place on Monday.
The bridge would open before the 1-year marks to check out the 20th annual gingerbread display.
Share with you this week's ray of sunshine.
We are still somehow hanging around in the playoffs.
It gives Georgia Democrats some hold onto the governing body.
200,000 people still in harm's way.
This weather is perfect for those cozy nights indoors.
Hey!
I'm an actor in an ad that was given 12 seconds to remind you that if you're high, just don't drive. Because if you feel different, you drive different. It's illegal to drive high everywhere anyway.
Pittsburghers with a lower income will soon be able to receive a discounted or free Connect card to use all public transport in the Pittsburgh area. The Discounted Fares pilot program, run by the Allegheny Department of Human Services, will be now distributing the Connect cards to applicants who signed up for the program. Anyone who is eligible for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is eligible to sign up before they closed on February 12th. 9,574 people signed up for the pilot program. However, with family members also receiving cards, the total number of people receiving cards is 14,164. 4,583 people will be in the control group, receiving a $10 thank you card but no discount. 4,710 people get the $10 gift card with an ongoing 50% discount. And finally, 4,873 people will get to ride completely for free. Pittsburghers for Public Transit is an advocacy group that has been pushing for low-income transportation for a long time and are celebrating this win. Executive Director Laura Weens said, quote, "We are celebrating the enrollment into this pilot program. We know that transit riders' lives have been transformed by having access to free and half fares. At this point, our attention is turning to ensuring that it's a permanent program and one that's accessible to every staff household in Allegheny County," end quote. The Department of Human Services plans on handing out all cards by February 24th, recording the results for a year, and then the results will be published to the public, resulting in the decision to make this program permanent.
The Wabash Bridge piers along the Monongahela River now have a new owner. The bridge once connected the Wabash Tunnel in Mount Washington to downtown Pittsburgh, but are now just brick piers that reside along the Monongahela River. The piers have been unclaimed for the last 44 years until just 6 days ago, when an anonymous buyer purchased the structures for, quote, more than $300,000 apiece, end quote. Although details will not be disclosed on the buying arrangement, Director of Hanna Commercial Real Estate A.J. Pantoni was the seller of the piers. Now, Pantoni said, quote, "I call it a Shark Tank moment. They said basically, here's the offer, you have 15 minutes to let us know. And then the family trust selling the piers said, we're going to take that offer," end quote. Pantoni has been in the process of selling these piers for 2 whole years. He mentioned that people had doubted their ability to sell and saying that they are just bricks and are useless. However, Pantoni says that he has heard a number of ideas circling around their use in the future. Either to be used as a form of art or a historical display is up for question. That will be a bridge that we cross in the future.
A new daily curfew and youth supervision policy was put into effect at the waterfront in Homestead. It states that after 6 p.m., anyone under the age of 18 must be with an adult who is at least 21 or older who has a form of identification. No one under 21 is allowed on waterfront property after midnight. People who do not follow these rules could be banned from the waterfront for life. Some people think this will just cause the waterfront issues in the long run. Joe Miller, a frequenter of the waterfront, said, quote, "You are going to have young people unsupervised whether you ban them or not. They are going to find a way to work their way down here," end quote. This policy took effect on Monday, the 20th. From a hotel with pretty poor luck to a popular sandwich shop closing for good, reporter Cade Montgomery is here with all of the details.
That's right, an SUV crashed into the side of Quality Inn in New Kensington early in the morning on Saturday, February 11th. Emergency officials responded to the crash at around 12:45 a.m. Officials reported that nobody was injured and that there was also nobody in the vehicle when they arrived on the scene. Hotel management told Trib Live that the car crashed into a storage area that was used to store tables and chairs, which were mostly destroyed. Dan Leo, who manages events in the hotel ballroom, told Trib Live that this, quote, "couldn't have happened at a worse time," end quote, adding that Barbra Streisand and Frank Sinatra impersonators were scheduled to perform in the ballroom for a sold-out crowd that night. Luckily, since most tables and chairs were already set in the ballroom and not in the damaged storage area, the show was able to go on. This crash took place almost a year after a different car crashed into the same side of the hotel, severing a natural gas line, catching both the car and hotel on fire on February 20th, 2022. The hole is currently covered with a black tarp, and hotel operations are normal. And in other news, it's a sad day for sandwich lovers in downtown Pittsburgh. Pennsylvania sandwich shop chain Bob's Sub announced that they would be closing their downtown Pittsburgh location, which was conveniently located near Point Park on Smithfield Street. The company announced the closing on its Instagram page with a photo of the location and a caption reading, quote, "It is with heavy hearts that we announce the difficult decision to close downtown Pittsburgh due to ongoing staffing and operational challenges. Special shout out to our employees and customers who supported us. We'll never forget the good vibes we've shared with Yins over the past 10 years. We hope to continue to make legendary memories with you at our other Bob's Sub locations," end quote. This is the second Bob's Sub location to close in recent years, as the company's Pittsburgh Mills location in Chirenham closed in 2021. The chain, which once had 7 locations, now only has 5 remaining, including New Kensington, Natrona Heights, Hampton, Perry Highway, and Indiana, Pennsylvania. Bob's Sub will be missed by many downtown as it is known as, quote, "a college town favorite," end quote.
Point Park students have been faced with many challenges as of late, but recently interim President Chris Brisalis has taken a step to ease the students' minds by hosting a listening session in order to hear student feedback. Our reporters Kalian Winder and Ethan Rowinski have the story.
With the sudden resignation of Don Green and the election of a new president occurring just barely a month ago, students have left with a sense of uneasiness the past few weeks. To help ease this, interim President Chris Busalas hosted a listening session on Monday to discuss the school's strategic planning process and hear feedback from the students. With the lack of networking between the schools, it almost seems like Point Park is almost in the background. The meeting began with Chris Konek discussing the school's 5-year plan before moving on to student feedback, where the positives and negatives of the school were discussed, with one reoccurring positive being the university's curriculum.
Like big draws to the school originally was the education and how like different it was and comprehensive than like other schools, and so I think that still holds true.
The negatives were focused on much more though, with one of the biggest negatives being consistently brought up with the school's lack of diversity.
I know, speaking specifically from a performing arts perspective, there are a lot of issues in COPA with equity and inclusion, problems with discrimination in the classroom. I think it would be a great idea, just from listening to like the student body, like we have expressed like that we have concerns about discrimination in the classroom time and time again.
Taking in this feedback, Brusalas told us after the meeting that he still has one thing set as his top priority: the students.
We, the university administration, faculty, and staff, we always have to keep top of mind of why we're here. And we're here to educate students so that our students can have the best life possible, so that they can chase their dreams and they have a chance of chasing their dreams.
For UV Television, this is Kalian Winder and Ethan Rowinski sending it back to the studio.
Thank you, Kalian and Ethan. Another listening session is set to take place on Thursday, February 23rd at 3 o'clock in Academic Hall Room 814. That's Academic Hall Room 814. For more information or to RSVP for the upcoming session, you can visit pointsync.pointpark.edu. The Allegheny County Health Department will be launching a new tool to help with vaccinations. This will be using an app called MyChart, which is already used by the Allegheny Health Network. They will be doing online scheduling for vaccinations through this app. It helps patients keep track of appointments, records, and more. ACHD Deputy Director for Clinical Services, Dr. Barbara Nightingale says, quote, "At the clinic, we are always looking to improve the patient experience. Our new self-scheduling tool will reduce time to eliminate patients' spends filling out forms and allowing them to one of our nurses faster," end quote. Patients can sign up with MyChart regardless of their healthcare provider. When we return from this break, we will have all the details on expected Guinness World Record holder. Also, will Pittsburgh's weather finally make up its mind? Stay tuned to hear your 5-day forecast with weather reporter Jill Musser.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
tiny California mouse now has a big title after winning a Guinness World Record for longevity. A Pacific pocket mouse named Pat, after Star Trek actor Patrick Stewart, received the Guinness approval Wednesday as the oldest living mouse in human care at the ripe age of 9 years and 209 days, the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance announced after a certification ceremony. Pat was born at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park on July 14, 2013, under a conservation breeding program. The Alliance said, "The Pacific pocket mouse, which weighs as much as 3 pennies, is the smallest mouse species in North America and gets its name from cheek pouches the animal used to carry food and nesting materials." The mouse once had a range stretching from Los Angeles south to the Tijuana River Valley, but the population plunged after 1932 because of human encroachment and habitat destruction. The mouse was thought to be extinct for 20 years until tiny isolated populations were rediscovered in 1994 in Dana Point in Orange County. But the species still remains endangered, the Alliance said. In 2012, the Alliance began a breeding program to help save the mouse from extinction. Last year, the Alliance recorded 117 pups, born in a record 31 litters. Many of the mice will be reintroduced to the wild this spring. It seems as if winter can't make up its mind in the Steel City. Weather reporter Jill Musser has your Pittsburgh weather forecast. Jill?
Thanks, Addie. Pittsburgh weather once again feels like a wild roller coaster ride. Taking a look at Thursday's forecast, temperatures will reach a high of 75 degrees. The day almost mirrors temperatures we would typically see in May. However, don't expect too much sunshine, as showers are expected sporadically throughout the morning and cloud cover is likely to be present throughout the rest of the day. It will also be an exceptionally breezy day, as wind gusts are predicted to reach up to 33 miles per hour. Now, let's take a look at the rest of the week. Although we are unlikely to see more than 75-degree days for the rest of the week, we are likely to see some more fairly moderate days. Temperatures are expected to stay between in the mid-40s to the mid-50s throughout the week, and we should be seeing a balance of sunshine and some rain across the next 5 days. Overnight, the temperatures are to drop to the high 20s and low 30s throughout the week. As well, dense cloud coverage is expected, but nighttime precipitation will be limited. That's all I have for you this week. Now back to the desk.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television.
You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or our website uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Jonah Summers.
And I'm Addison Deal. From everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.